Okay, so it kind of looked like I'm in prison, right? See the little this and a little that. Look like I'm in prison walls. I want to give you this encouraging word. I'm going to tell you what the Lord said to me. I was cleaning up my truck, right? And I heard the Spirit of the Lord plain as that. He said, remember when. And he, took me back down, memory lane. And then I heard God said, but you won't ever get a remember when until you have your exodus. Remember when has to come before your exodus. Okay, so when you go back to the book of Exodus, God has been like, go over to the book of Exodus. It wasn't until the children of Israel, which they had everything going on, everything was fine, it was in abundance, it was, fruitful, most of it, I had it going on. But it wasn't until that the enemy looked over there and saw that the Israelites was plenty. And it wasn't until the Pharaoh looked back and thought about, wait a minute, hold up. That is a mighty nation right there. And if my enemies come up against me, they might go get them, and there's plenty of them, and they all won't come against me, so I better go get them and enslave them. And so that's exactly what Pharaoh did. But the beauty of this is, it wasn't until the children who thought they had it going on, who knew they had it going, who knew everything was good for the children of Israel. Everything was good. But it wasn't until that when the Lord allowed them to go into bondage that they realized, I thought I had a nice house. I thought I had the finest car. I thought I had a good job. I thought I had my security. I thought everything was good. It was many of us. We had it going on. I thought everything was cool. Like many of us, when we think we in our nice, cozy home, driving our nice cars, got our nice job, and got our beautiful husband, beautiful wives, and beautiful children, amazing. When everything is good, right? When everything is good, we don't realize that we need God until trouble comes. My friend had knocked me out. Hey, sweetheart. It wasn't until they had to go into bondage to see that I ain't what I thought I was. But it was in their crying out to God and their, being enslaved by Pharaoh, the harsh treatment, the way he was mistreating them and doing this and that to them. It wasn't until all of that had to happen for them to get to their exodus. Now, what they did, they cried out to God. They said, Lord, this harsh punishment is on me, and this and that, this and that. And they cried out to the Lord. And the Lord heard their cry, and he sent Moses. And so when God had sent Moses, God did miraculous things. He did amazing things. Go read the book of Exodus. It's going to bless you. God did all these amazing things and showed Pharaoh who he was, by messing with his people. But in the Exodus is when they was leaving out. Exodus is your exit. It's when you leaving out of something, and when you're out of, you on the other side. But it's when in the Exodus, in the exit, in the coming out, is when you really show enough see who God is. You won't see God until doing. You ain't gonna see God before, because everything is good. But during the transition, you're going to see God. And when you come out, that's what God tell you. Well, I showed you who I am. I showed you what I can do. Now I need you to do something for me. If you want to ever experience I remember when, you got to go through your exodus. And don't be afraid, because in your exodus is when you get to see who God is. It's when you get to see who your so-called friends is. It's when you get to see that who you thought was for you was not for you. So I want to encourage you that while you going through your I remember when, and while you trying to prevent from going through your remember when, I want to let you know your remember when is your best part of your life. I remember when I was 8 years old and this was happening. I didn't understand why it was happening, but it wasn't until I came out of it and I can appreciate it. I remember when I was homeless and I didn't have we didn't have anywhere to lay our head. Me and my 2 children. But God. It wasn't until I came out of that, but during the process, it was kind of tough. But I was seeing the hand of God. But it wasn't until I came out of it that I can look back and remember that I had to remember when. It wasn't until I got my car repossessed that I didn't realize. I thought, I had a car and everything was cool. But guess what? It wasn't until the car got repossessed while I was going through it that I see who God is, the hand of God is. Because God turned around and gave me a van. A lady gave me a van. But it wasn't until I was going through it. I remember when. Till I got to see my exodus. I want to encourage you. Now, earlier I just showed you about these bars. I showed you about this wall. Now, you can keep yourself be locked up in prison in your mind. You can keep yourself locked up in your bondage, trying to escape and not want to go through your remember when. But I want to encourage you, remember when is the best part of your life. Your remember when is when you can testify. Even when you see somebody else and they going through, I want to let you know why that person that was once a homosexual that's come out of a homosexual lifestyle. Okay, check this out. Remember when, but look at them now. That person, that house just got burnt up because they thought they had it going on. Yep, that's they remember when, but look at them now. So I just want to just tell you, God bless. Even with your mess, you can have a remember when. But the thing is that are you willing to allow God to give you a remember when? Are you willing to let God to bring you out of that place that you think that's got it going on to bring you into the place where He got for you? Take the time to check yourself. Do inventory on your life. Look at yourself and look at the things, is God pleasing with that? Now, when you are in a great position, when everything is going good, and you know it was God who did it, just praise. Continue to praise Him. Because one thing about the enemy, he don't like when you're happy. He don't like when you're joyful. He don't like when you got it going on. So that sucker gonna show his head. But guess what? Remember when your neighbor down the street went through that divorce. Remember when your neighbor down the street went through that miscarriage. Remember when your neighbor down the street lost their home. Remember when your neighbor down the street lost their job. Remember when your neighbor down the street was a homeless. You know what I'm saying? Their exodus is your blessing. And your exodus is your remember when. Their remember when is your blessing. And your remember when gonna be somebody else's blessings. Just don't be afraid to go through the process of your exodus. Don't be afraid to go through the process because the enemy is coming. He don't care who you are. He don't care you, Lord. He don't care. But he's coming. And he's going to come through your friends, your family, your co-workers, your job. He's going to come. He's going to find a way to slither in. But guess what? You must remember, if you study the book of Exodus, you must remember that God always got one up on the enemy. God always got a ram in the bush. God always better go ask Abraham in Genesis when God told him, well, Abraham, you got it going on. Abraham, I'm going to use you to sacrifice your child. And Abraham, my child? But when he got the child, he better lay the child down by the, just stab him. And God said, Abraham, don't you dare touch that child. Look over there in the thickets. I had a ram in the bush. Because what he was willing to lay down for God, God turned around and restored it. God turned around and gave it back and gave something in the place. The same thing with you. When you are willing to lay down that thing that God is telling you to lay it down, when you're willing to give up that thing that God is telling you to give up, you better believe it's a ram in the bush. It's a ram in the thicket. And he's going to give you double for your trouble. And he's going to bless you because that's who God is. So once again, while you're going through your exodus, when you get ready to experience your exodus, remember there is a remember when, and that remember when is going to be a blessing to you and somebody else. So y'all have a blessed day. Gotta go. And remember, don't you be in prison. Don't in prison right here. You get up and you go through your exodus. Love you guys. Bye.